anyone who tells you that balance is the way you should live your life is either rich and has already made it and is talking to you about the way they live their life now, or is not successful and is someone who is projecting their lack of desire to work hard onto you and your life. And I'm going to explain exactly why in this video, but more importantly, I'm going to tell my story, my lack of balance, where it's got me, and also to the point of what I would do instead of balance to make sure that you can grind incredibly hard, but also not burn yourself out, which is something I've experienced, but something I've managed to work out how to avoid. So this video is going to be a complete description of all that. It's focused for any entrepreneur, anyone who's grafting, anyone who's grinding hard right now. And I think it's been incredibly valuable for you if you are in that stage right now. And the first thing I want to do is just explain a little bit about my story, because you're probably sitting there watching there. You might have watched some of my channel. You might know a bit about me, but if you don't, I'm Sol. I, 6 months ago, decided that the corporate world in London was not for me and have been slowly building my social media coaching and now more specifically consulting business, helping coaches and consultants scale their online offer. And I have built that, basically launched my offer 3 months ago and have scaled it to 115K in just over 115 days now, which is very exciting. But I had no balance. And I'm going to show some videos on the screen now of what that 6 months looked like for me. And I wrote some notes here about some things to make sure that I include. But throughout that period, I literally worked in consulting. When I was working in my corporate job, so that was like a year ago, when I was building up my social media presence, I was posting once a day, and I must have been working maybe 50, 60 hours a week on my actual consulting job in the horrible corporate London, which was not fun. But at the same time, I was still posting once a day. I was still getting YouTube videos out a week, and I was still doing networking events. I was still building offers. I was working incredibly, incredibly hard. And there's videos of me actually in this co-working space that I'll show now. And there's also, what some of the things that I remember doing is I remember refusing to eat out because of the fact that it was too expensive, but also refusing to cook. So to optimize my time, I'd go and I timed the perfect time when the Tesco meal deals would come out. So I knew at about 3 p.m. the Tesco reduced to clear. So I knew at 3 p.m. and at about 8 p.m. the Tesco reduced to clear section would come on, which is where they put the stickers on the Tesco items where they like discount the prices. So I know straight away that was the time I had to go to Tesco. So I ate my lunch at 3 p.m. and I ate my dinner at 8 p.m. and I'd basically have the scraps of what Tesco could deliver. And that was because I was just so focused. Every single thing I was doing was optimized towards basically working hard. And that basically led to me being able to get my social media to a point where people were asking me to help them. And even before that, I quit my job with kind of no backup plan and was working genuinely 100-hour weeks to build my social media, to build my knowledge of social media and my knowledge of online offers. And then built that to a point, then moved to Dubai, was working. I literally locked myself in the room. Again, another video up here. I literally locked myself in a room in Dubai for a month. I hardly left the building, maybe occasionally to go to an outside gym and go for a run on the beach. But apart from that, I was literally grinding. I was surrounded in this pretty average building with a lot of kind of construction workers, and I was just locked in. And all of that is to say to you right now, that's not me to kind of like grind mindset, but all of that is to say that I was just working so incredibly hard ever since about June, maybe April 2024. I've been working incredibly hard. And why I think balance is bullshit is that I have a few reasons why I disagree with balance. The first is that balance comes from an idea of anyone who says to you that you need balance is saying you need balance because of the fact that they view work and play differently. And tell me if I'm wrong, right? But isn't the whole idea to make what we do as work our play? Like, isn't the whole idea right now for you to be watching this video, which is hopefully informative for your business and your career, isn't the idea that that is what you should be doing your leisure time? Because people who tell me I need balance are people who view work as something like a chore. People who view work as something that is difficult to do. And I view work as something that I would do choice or not choice. Because filming this YouTube video, going and chatting to my clients, creating short form content, building systems and processes. Like, I genuinely love doing that. So when someone says balance to me, if you've got like, you know, work and play here and you've got balance in the middle, well, I don't see work and play as two different things. I see work and play as the same thing because I've created a career that is like that. So the first thing I want to say is anyone who says to you balance is bullshit or someone who says to you balance is important, is basically saying that they view their work as different to their play. Whereas how amazing could it be if you create the same thing so that when you wake up, you're basically getting paid, your income is coming in for your play, which is the same as your work. And that's the way that I see it. I talk about all these, like, you know, locking myself in that co-working, eating Tesco meal deals. I was so happy. Like, I was unbelievably happy when I was doing that because I was doing what I would choose to do if you dropped me in the middle of a random country and said you could do whatever you want, here's unlimited money in the world. I would still sit here and make YouTube videos. I would still sit here and have the purpose and fulfillment of working with coaches and consultants and building their careers for them. I genuinely love doing it. And you might not believe me. You might think I'm some online course seller that says that, but I genuinely love doing it. And it's got to the point where people around me say, you work way too hard. And I'm like, I don't work. Like, I don't know what you mean I work too hard, because what you're looking at is you're looking at the image of me sat at a laptop and comparing that to how you feel when you're sat at a laptop. But how I feel when I'm sat at a laptop is I feel like this is exactly what I want to do. This is exactly what I love doing. And that is the difference between the saying balance is important and me thinking that anyone who says that balance is important is someone who hasn't figured out what they want to do in their life. So I guess that's the first thing that I would say about that. But the other thing that I would say about balance is it's really important to have different chapters and different seasons in your life, because I am in a house right now with an entrepreneur who is doing very well for himself, and he's worked incredibly hard for 2 years, and in that 2 years he has built his business to an amazing place where he can kind of have his business running on autopilot, and he's now enjoying Bali, he's now enjoying getting in good shape, enjoying social life, and that is the chapter he's in right now. Whereas the chapter he was in a year ago was grind, and that's another reason why balance is bullshit. Is you just need to work out which chapter you're in right now, because it doesn't matter what chapter you are in, but you should just do one thing incredibly well, whether that be smashing your health. It doesn't mean you don't work at all, but you go through a health chapter where it's like health is my primary focus here, or you go through a work focus chapter where you are grinding and work is incredibly focused on, and you don't think so much about the other things. And again, that's not saying you don't exercise, but you go through different chapters, and I'm going back to London in like 25 days time, and my plan for that like time in London is to treat that as a life chapter. Like I'm gonna go and see all my friends, I'm gonna see my family, I'm gonna like aim to do very little work while I'm there, and I think that's the chapter that I want to be in while I'm there. And right now I'm in a grind chapter, but then I'm going to be in a work in a life chapter. And who knows, maybe in a few months' time I might go in a full health chapter and train 3 times a day and just like only eat good food and do recovery. But what I'm trying to say is like balance within a day doesn't work because of the theory of specialization. What you want to do is you want to optimize your life for as long as possible in one singular chapter, because you adapt to it. Like, even I'll make this super tangible for you. Even so, right now I'm in the grind chapter. I have the most unbelievable work setup. I have this like microphone sat here ready to go. I have my laptop, I have everything ready. And it means that when I wake up in the day, I'm in my routine of, I know at 6 a.m. I start work. I know I then go to gym at 9, and then I know that I work for 2 hours, and I'm specialized. I've specialized in that knowledge. It's an economic theory that I learned in my degree, which is about specializing. I've specialized in the knowledge and the routine of how to lock in. And then when I go into my health chapter, I will specialize in health. I will know these are all the training times to do. You know, when someone goes on like a health retreat, they are specializing in that. And the problem is if you try and get balance within a day, then you are just moving, you're dotting around everywhere. You're not doing anything well because of the fact that you are only doing things half-heartedly. I believe in going full in something and doing that for an extended amount of time, specializing in it, optimizing in it, and then doing another maybe month of that. So that would be the way that I would chapter my life. And I think that's much better than balance, because everyone, I can give you two reasons why I believe that. Firstly, because of the specialization. And secondly, you'll see, if you've seen any of my content before, you'll know that I'm a big proponent of just saying, you should just do what people above you, the people you view as more successful in your life, you should just do what they do. And I've seen, undoubtedly, from everyone I've seen who's more successful than me, and I'll be like, to give context, they're making 100K a month and plus, and they have great businesses where they feel fulfilled and happy every day. And what they do is they have chapters, and I go, okay, cool, that's what I need to do as well. It's very simple. Like, for me, it's very simple to have those chapters. A lot of people end up going to Dubai to lock in very, very like hard, and then they come out here to Bali, and then they maybe do a bit more of like a lifestyle chapter. And who can blame you when you have this incredible background? So that's how I want to set up my life, and that's how I do set up my life. And I don't allow balance to come into that, because of the fact that I want balance in maybe a year or 2 years, but I don't want balance within a day, because that to me is doing nothing well. So that's my thoughts on balance, and I appreciate you sticking on for this. I want to talk about the actual balance of not having balance and locking in, because I've been thinking a lot about locking in, about how everyone talks about locking in. And the first thing I want to say is that people always say, I'm going to lock in. I made a reel about this recently. People always say they're going to lock in, and they never do. Like, it's the biggest like dopamine hit to go and say to someone, it's time to lock in. Bro, we're locking in. We're going to get this bag. And people love being able to tell people that, but then I ask them what they do in their day, and they're like, oh, I spend a few hours doing this, and then like, yeah, I kind of don't feel like I've done anything at the end of the day. And they get to the point where they're like, they've actually just not locked in. Like, they've maybe done 4 hours deep work a day, and that's fine if you want to do that. Like, if you're in the chapter where you're doing 4 hours work in the morning and that's it, but if you are locking in, I'm talking like 12 hours at a desk, that is not locking in. So don't go around telling people you're locking in. But the kind of setup for locking in, what it looks like, I think there's a few key like parameters that I have for when I say I'm locking in. And I've done this, as I said, I locked myself in a room in Dubai for a month. I also locked myself in when I was in my parents' house for 2 months. I was both of those. I was working literally 100 hours a week. Incredible. Like, it's not sustainable, but like the output is incredible of what you can do. So I think there's a few features of that. The first thing is you have to say no to absolutely everything. Like, you have to say no. You have to get so used to saying no. People will ask you to go for dinner. People will ask you to go to the gym with them. People will ask you to go on a walk with them. All of those things, you have to think incredibly hard about if it's pulling you out of your pattern, because every small little distraction that you get adds up massively and takes you out of focus. So that's the first thing I'd say. The second thing is you have to get rid of all distractions. And I muted all the notifications on my phone. I got rid of social medias apart from Instagram, because I had to keep it, because that's like my job effectively. But I got rid of social media so I wasn't scrolling. I had a very, very, very fixed routine. I'd wake up at 6, I'd work for 4 hours, I'd do a bit of exercise, I'd then work for 4 hours, and then I would have a lunch, have a bit more of a chill, and then I would do more manual tasks and meetings all the way until maybe dinner, and then I would work again. And they were like that was my routine. And you have to have the most fixed routine possible. And I was so lucky to be able to do that in Dubai. It's an amazing place to do it. The other thing that you need to do is you need to remove anything that takes time, that is not output, that is not focusing on your work. Because you'll find that like even small things like outsourcing, I outsource cooking, I outsource cleaning. Like, I got delivery, even though like I couldn't afford it at that point, but I was like, I need to do this because I need to spend money to make money. I outsourced my cleaning. I outsourced driving around. I didn't even think about driving. Whenever I went anywhere, I got in a taxi, and I couldn't afford any of this, but it was exactly what I did to be able to make sure that I was locked in, because the only thing that I was focused on or thinking about was literally work, literally output. So, or literally input. And that brings me very nicely onto the next part, which is if you're going to lock in, which is great, like if you're going to lock in, it's amazing, but don't lock in for lock-in's sake. That's the one bit of advice that I want you to take from this, because if you're grinding or if you're just working in general, I think this is going to be the most useful advice you get from this video, which is inputs are the most important thing. And it's so important to define what your inputs are in order to get the outputs you want, because a lot of people, they feel like they should lock in, they feel like they should be working, and then they get to their desk and they sit there and they're like, all right, what am I doing? Like, what am I actually working on? And I've had that a few times where I've not actually worked on the inputs. And once you define your inputs, even if you're not locking in, working with inputs is super important, because it allows you to not have balance, but it means you can do other things. Like, it means you can focus on really, really working out what is your to-dos, like what are the things you need to get out of the day. And I've kind of got a list of things that mean why I believe that inputs are the most important thing. I want to firstly talk about the clients that I've worked with, because I like have a kind of agreement at the start when you sign up with me, which is, it's not a contract, it's not legally binding or anything like that, but I have an agreement that I get my clients to sign as a statement of intent that they're going to do these 3 things every week. And the first is that they're going to send a certain amount of outbound messages. The second is that I say they're going to post a certain amount of short form content. And the third is they're going to post a certain amount of long form content. And I get them to say they're going to do those 3 things because I know that those inputs, those 3 inputs, are the reason that I hit 6 figures. Only those 3 inputs. And there is no way you can't be successful if you don't put those inputs in. I know from myself and I know from other people. And the clients that I know have done super well, Ben, 14K in 33 days. Josh has managed to quit his corporate job and has now got a 50K a year agency business. And Andrew, who made 6.5K within 38 days of working together. Like, all those are just a few examples, but each of them, I could tell you exactly the inputs that they did, the exact inputs that I asked them to do, and they did the inputs and they got the outputs. And I'm saying all of this because I believe that inputs are the most important thing you can have, because they give you the comfort. I mean, let me go through the list. So the first is, when you have inputs, you know what you're working towards, because it's easy to sit at a desk for 12 hours and say you're locked in, but you want to be clear as what you're doing in those 12 hours, because then you can measure if what you're doing is causing the outputs you want. So if you want to, say, start making more money, you need to create more leads. So let's say you're locking in to create more leads. And if you're looking to create inputs for that, you need to work out what the inputs are that are going to allow you to get more leads. And if you're spending 3 hours of that 12 hours working on your course, that is not going to help you get more leads. So I'm super, you can work smarter and not harder by defining your inputs that you want to get to your output. And those inputs are the inputs that are going to allow you to measure the success of how close you are to the output. And that is why I believe in input working when you're locking in or when you're just working in general, because it means that you can define how successful that lock-in is. So that works well. So that's the first reason. The second reason is it helps you with an actual structure. So we talked about the routine that we're going to have when we are fucking this balance off and we're just grinding. Like, if you're grinding, again, this is locking in or not locking in. It's just when you're grinding and working hard. The second thing is, you're going to wake up in the morning and know, and I say this, I can't believe the amount of times I say this on a client call. I say, all you need to do is wake up in the morning and think about this. And I want it to be so clear to my clients. And this is what I think. As I wake up in the morning, I think I need to make a YouTube video. That's the only thing I think in the first thing in the morning. So the great thing about inputs is defining your inputs, is knowing that the work you need to do when you wake up is this. You need to know, if you work with me, you need to know about the DMs, the cold mess, the DMs, the short form videos and the long form videos. They're the 3 things you need to know about. And if you know about those things, then you will wake up and you'll go, okay, I know I need to do those things. It gives you pure clarity, because I'm sure you've had those times when you're like, I know I need to work hard, but I don't know what on. And Ben said this to me the other day, one of my successful clients. He was like, I've got clients coming in, I don't really know what to work on. And I'm like, let's define you some inputs, because firstly, what's the output? And let's define you inputs on that. And then it means you wake up with a purpose. And that's a great feeling. So I love that. That's the second reason why I love it, is you know what you're waking up to every day. And as I kind of mentioned, the third reason why I like the inputs is because it actually allows you to see where you're going wrong. And I had this recently because I had a slower month in terms of sales. And I actually went in and looked at, like, why did I have a slower month with my sales? And it turned out it was because of this one metric. But that one metric, like, I could easily then define the fact that we weren't putting that input in enough in order to get the output. There were many inputs that we have in order to make a sale, and one of the inputs was not firing like it should be. And then it became super easy to see where we were going wrong. So by defining everything as inputs, you start realizing what you're not doing, and then you start, or you're lacking on, because you can measure it, and then you can improve it. And recently we improved it, and we've now like picked up sales because of it. So it was actually super easy to do that. So all of that is to say that's exactly why I would create inputs. Because of the fact that it's going to give you that clarity, it's going to mean you work less hard, and it also means it's going to show you where you like know where you're going wrong. But all of this in terms of the whole point I've said that is because I believe that if you can create the inputs, create the right inputs, then it allows you to grind, but grind sensibly in that season where you're working incredibly hard. And then you just change that for when your season is like trying to improve your health. You're like, all right, what are the inputs for that? I need to go to the gym once a day. I need to eat this many calories. I need to go do this many recovery sessions. Then you define inputs that way. And if you define your life in inputs, then you don't ever need balance, because your life is optimized for what your outcome you want is. So fuck balance. Only go for chapters and seasons. Work incredibly hard when you can, because you'll have outsized returns. And if you ever want to work with me, my link's in the description. Thanks for your time.